Okay. In 1961, 100 years after the unification of Italy, the Ligurian filmmaker Andreina Ferrando submitted to the General Directorate for Cinema of the Italian state the investment plan and the script for a didactical geographical documentary targeting young Italians. The film, entitled Our Country, will be an educational documentary structured as a journey through the ancient and modern uses of Italy. The film, wrote Ferrando, must be an invitation to consider one's belonging to Italy as a commitment before oneself and the whole world to uphold the principle of civilization in a spirit from complex of inferiority and vain nationalism. What a curious phrase. Why this clarification? The reason must be found in the memory of an important but also embarrassing visual tradition. This leads us up to 50 years before, in 1911, in the year in which the first important anniversary of the unity of the country was celebrated. In 1911, the industry of the Actualité series, not single Actualité, but series of Actualité, had just started taking its first steps. This new type of production was principally made by three film companies: the Ambrosio in Turin, the Cines in Rome, and the Luca Comerio in Milan. There are other companies, but these three companies are the most important. It's important to point that two of them, Ambrosio and Cines, were medium-large movie companies. In fact, to make these kind of movies, it was necessary to have overabundance of film cameras and specialized staff that had to be able to work with a certain continuity out of the common fiction film production. Is an exception the case of Luca Comerio in Milan, a photographer and filmmaker who, due to a commercial dispute, lost his film studios. But Comerio had capital cameras, specialized staff, and very good experience to make beautiful non-fiction series. So why Luca Comerio is very important for non-fiction film in Italy in this year. But in 1911, also the modern Italian nationalism movement had just started taking his first step. Disappointed by formulas and rituals of the ruling parties, for the nationalists unable to achieve the tradition, but also terrified by the strong growth of socialism, the nationalists proposed an image of Italy like a nation connected to the glorious past, which they found starting not in 1816, but even from the Roman Empire, but a nation also connected to the recent industrialization processes. To achieve its political program, this movement adopted keywords that followed two different guidelines. One of these was to conquer a position in mass education, not only school education, but also adult education. In particular, mass education of national history and education of national geography. Another important keyword was a strong use in a political practice of the category of emotionality. The emotionality was considered not only as a manner to talk to the society, to crowds, but also as a way to get in touch with individuals. The individuals, indeed, in modern society, were supposed to be unreceptive to information. This was due to the presence of too many messages in modern life. So to achieve this goal, and driven by the interest in modernity, they did not disdain the use of modern visual media, such reviews, book illustrated with colored photos, or conference with photographic picturesque slides. However, since about 1911, the use of cinematography had been becoming increasingly strong. 1911 was the year in which the 15th anniversary of the unity of Italy was celebrated, but also that in which Italy attacked Turkey in the south of the Mediterranean to take control of Tripolitania and Cyrenaica. This event, given also the ostracism that the army showed towards foreign correspondence, provoked an enormous development in two fields, Kodak photos and movie actualité. Okay. As a matter of fact, many Italian movie companies, including those mentioned above, to which the Italian section of Pathé must be added, began to allocate huge funds for the realization of actualité concerning war. In this film, they did not show only war actions, always reactive, by the way, and obviously very picturesque, and they did not show only the rear or the front of line, but also the landscape beauties of the new colonies conquered by the country. So, some example. This is also la presa di Zuara by Luca Comerio, and Guerra Italo-Turca serie mista. Okay. The nationalism movement that was enormously developing in that biennium went into raptures about these movies, which were well suited to its poetics. The cinematographers in the new colonies worked side by side with national journalists, sometimes filming them in their films or getting themselves photographed by them while shooting, like now. But also the families of the solid, and so I want to show some photos. Okay. But also the family of the soldiers involved in Libya campaign, families that were of course scattered all over the country, wanted to be filmed. This ensured to cinematographers the opportunity of a sort of a Italian tour, shooting group of soldiers' family or masses of family from city by city, Milan, Turin, Rome, Venice, Naples, La Spezia. These shootings were carried out by the Chinese who finances the shootings. So the cinematographers of the Chinese, like Ugo Cocanari, were the ones exclusively entitled to make these shootings of relatives and filmed the families en masse. National representatives, on the other hand, provided the security service during the shooting or collected money to carry them out when funds were lacking. For their part, the journalists that supported the movement described the picturesque character of this shooting. There are many articles on these topics in a newspaper, very impressive articles in the first pages of the newspaper. As a matter of fact, in these cine postcards of Italy, which had been screened a few weeks later as true cine postcards of greetings to the war front, and so would have liked to correspond to many military cine postcards from Libya, aimed to bring out a sort of picturesque quality of the popular, whereas the previous cinematography simply reproposed the already great popularity of the picturesque. However, this huge wave of films from the new colonies, or about Italians suffering and hoping for their loved ones, at the same point irritated those who lived in regions of the country not yet included neither in the Cine Postcards project or in the new geographical series. The Cines, in particular, seem to have betrayed their expectations. What had happened to the project of filming the whole country that they had launched months before? Almost as if the duty of guaranteeing to everyone his own picture space had been disregarded, an unknown correspondent of the Corriere di Padova wrote from Sardinia these lines. And indeed, without going too far, we have in our home country a magnificent land always to be discovered, a land that maintains almost intact through the centuries-old struggles its Ligurian pelagic character, Sardinia. I hope that sooner some fervent lover of art and science will want to cross our sea to reach the forgotten and distant land than returning from it full of artistic beauties which will offer to the waiting people as treasure of light and life. However, not long after this note, the cinematographer Adolfo Rompanti, who had just been decorated by the king and was just back from Libya, was sent to film Sardinia to further enrich the series of views from Italy. Pictures filmed on the time, however, did not refer only to innocent views of beauty. What did the audience see, in fact? We see before mostly postcard views, mostly and picturesque places, often already celebrated in paintings, photographs, and postcards. Places that included so many realities in single glance. Moreover, the audience can saw water, sometimes in various shots combined together, or sometimes in moving shooting. Why so much water? Partly for the reason already well expressed by Yves Oblom when he talked about the French non-fiction of the time. The way of water is the natural path for traveler and of the landscape narrator too. But perhaps also for other reasons more related to the physical reality and the cultural tradition of the country. I refer here, on the one hand, to the orographic characteristic of Italy, at the time crossed by rivers or generally shoreland, but thanks to the great quantity of mountain ranges, with a large presence of streams, waterfall, watercourses of all kinds. Italy was very rich of water before the catchment for the hydroelectric power of the subsequent years. From the other hand, I refer to the important role in defining the beauty of the country, celebrated both by the Grand Tour and by the seminal book of Antonio Stopani, Il Bel Paese, of the many natural outcroppings, volcanoes and geographical formations, waterfall, gorges, glaciers. Moreover, a small picturesque space was offered by engineering works, bridges, dams, roads. Little space was instead given to the human being who became on the one hand an extra, from the other as an implicit agent of transformation of the gaze itself. However, it is significant in the series produced by the Cines, which more than any other aimed to map the country, the constant presence of an initial shot showing shots showing hands or pointers of teachers intended to indicate to the viewer the geographical location of the place that he or she was going to see in the movie. There was explicitly a narrating element, the geographer of the cinema, and another who observed the viewer of the cinema. It is a virtual journey to the country which replaces the various virtual education journey proposed in previous years by various book writers to teach Italy to Italians. So, some examples of the initial shots. And then the book Il bel paese by Stoppani, Viaggio per l'Italia di Giannettino, La geografia di Giannettino, La lanterna magica di Giannettino by Collodi. And this book I have already done. Okay. If you want, film became a picturesque tool to teach Italians about Italy rather than a tool to merely make them see it. This leads us to a reflection that directly involves the role of journey. As a matter of fact, these films are not to be considered, as we have said, as single products, but in their very serial quality. They were therefore stages of a journey to discover the picturesque Italy. But who was the traveler? Even if films would have also been sold abroad, the main target audience was him, the Italian, who had to learn to know his country through the filter of cinematographic modernity. And it would have been another Italian, the traveling film cameraman, guiding him along the way. In other words, if the Grand Tour, in the strict sense, was, as we know, an educational journey for non-Italians, who thus found and trained themselves by crossing Italy and its picturesque landscape, here we are instead in contact with a reverse angle. The Cines film Voyage series are a really undeclared anti-Grand Tour, in which the postcard itself was self-produced and reached by sender by imposing its reality on the external eye. And by this act, Italy defined itself as a nation able to tell itself in its complexity. On the other hand, as the crepuscular poet Fausto Martini wrote in the Roman newspaper La Tribuna in February 1912, so I have to return, okay. If you go into the cinema before watching the adaptation of a Shakespearean drama, you may happen to see the unfolding of nature scenes, surprise in the most far-off regions: forests, mountains, lakes, seas, a ship, a desert, a glacier, a small village in a very distant, unfamiliar land, a city that you love only for the loveliness of its name, a center of life that awakened in you a tremendous curiosity when you were young, and a place to which you proposed to go, but to which you never will go. So, in all of this, there is poetry. In this way, the cinema finds its lyricism, satisfies a certain sentimental feeling which sleeps in all of our hearts, the nostalgia for those places that we have never seen, that we may never see, but where we almost seem to have lived in some previous life. Do you remember that Dante Gabrieli Rossetti poem in which the soul of the poet flies off towards some fantastical districts where he says to have stayed prior to his life? So, if you happen to admire the splendor of certain lands and of certain unknown places in an exact cinematographic reproduction, that is why those sorrowful verses come to your memory. You were already in those places yourself. When? Who knows? In which roaming period of your spirit, which wanders all over the place? For in the end, thus is the psychology of modern man. Fever assails him, life constrains him, but the more his daily routine binds to his chains, the more he remains the serene vagabond of the primitive age, and he enjoys it if some spectacle gathers to neglected borders of his hand close to him, if it makes him think that at the same time those mountains or those valleys or those seas that he sees reproduced on film reciprocally give their beauty to a rosy-fingered dawn or to a romantic Claire de Lune. In other words, the non-fiction film was not just a journey inside the picturesque, but also a picturesque journey in viewer's time through space. In this case, it was the journey of an Italian traveler who, through the intensity of the cinematic gaze, rediscovered his connection, both historical and spiritual, with his own land. So, go to the epilogue. Okay. Beyond the horrible but also international and the internationally interlude of World War I, it is evident that this picturesque and out-of-body capacity of cinema increasingly linked Italian picturesque non-fiction cinema with nationalism. This is evident too in a film that we could consider the most important examples of Italian cinematic journey of the early 20s. In this film, Aeroturismo con aeronavi della Regia Marina Italiana, the spectator gets on an airship in Rome together with a group of journalists. First, we find the modernity of Rome, especially the airport. Then the Rome is seen from above. Afterwards, we fly in the direction of ancient Ostia and Pompeii. So, the wings of modernity, cinema and airship, following Martini's dream, make the spectator flying from today to yesterday, moving through the space to reach history. So, I want to show the film, and come si fa qua? Okay, some part of this film. So we start from modernism, the airships and the airport. But suddenly we arrive to Rome. Modern and ancient Rome. So we see the Vittoriano, Colosseo, and now Vittoriano. This is Vittoriano, inaugurated in 1911. And then we fly to the west in direction of the sea, and then arrive to the sea, we fly in direction of Pompeii. Vediamo se lo trovo. Voglio vedere questo. Naples. So from modernity to antiquity, to ancient world, to ancient Rome. Yeah.